Blake Leath. Welcome to the Gratitude Series, Episode 6. Today's episode is the first in a series of 3, wherein I thank those whose examples, whose way of living and ultimately dying, reveal to me, to all of us, what it is to be patient, to persevere, and to be personally disciplined, self-disciplined. I view their demonstrations as nesting together logically, like Russian dolls, if not altogether inseparably, and so we'll explore them in that way in a 3-episode series. I feel that what we've recently endured, a global pandemic, has demanded that each of us be patient, perseverant, and disciplined, though, admittedly, to varying degrees or in our own unique ways. A great multitude socially distanced, masked, got our shots and boosters, and locked down. In short, waited somewhat patiently until we were told it was safe to get back in the water. And that's just what we did ourselves, in our own families and in our own homes. Waited. Others, however, braved the elements and the risks and carried on physically, on site, to ensure the world kept turning, goods kept getting manufactured, and essential items continued to flow through the sometimes crinkly but always on supply chains and channels of distribution of medicine, commerce, telecommunications, and the like, so that the rest of us could live, work, eat, stay healthy, earn a living while waiting to return to the water. And then some, of course, pay the ultimate price with their lives. And many of those who didn't might as well have, as they lost someone or several someones near and dear to them. So it is against this backdrop, these contextual realities, that I want to remind you about, or in some cases introduce you to, a girl who loved to write, a bookworm who loved to read, and a boy who loved to run. There's a funny meme out there, has been for several years now. Always be yourself, unless you can be Batman. And always be Batman. I do love Batman. It's good escapism. Whether the goofy hijinks of the mid-60s OG with Pow, Bam, and Thwop, or the broody intellectualism of Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, and his father before him, Thomas Wayne, played with panache by Linus Roche, who asked after Bruce fell into the well where he was traumatized by bats, "Why do we fall, Bruce?" So we can learn to pick ourselves up. Frank, Frankel, and Fox might sound like a law firm. A great name, in fact. But they are, in truth, the girl, the bookworm, and the boy. And their lives were so memorable, so heroic, that I can't help but think that Batman should always be Batman. Unless, of course, he can be Frank, Frankel, or Fox. Because then, and only then, would he know what it is to truly be a superhero. Let's start with a timeline, so you can visualize each of these 3 individuals and see where their stories began and, in a couple instances, even intersected. On March 26, 1905, Viktor Frankl is born in Vienna, Austria. On September 25, 1942, 9 months after their marriage, and after being forced by Nazis to abort their child, Tilly and Viktor Frankl are arrested and sent to what will be, for Viktor, the first of 4 concentration camps. Soon thereafter, Victor is transferred to Auschwitz, and then a third camp, and then a fourth camp. And it's not until April 27th, 1945, that he's liberated. Viktor Frankl passed on September 2nd, 1997. Anne Frank was born in Frankfurt, Germany on June 12, 1929. On July 6, 1942, Anne, her family, the Van Pels family, and Fritz Pfeffer hide behind a bookshelf in their home's annex. On August 4th, 1944, Anne and her family are discovered by Nazi Gestapo. Anne is sent to Auschwitz and then Bergen-Belsen. Estimated between February and March 1945, Anne dies at age 15. On July 28, 1958, Terry Fox is born. On March 9, 1977, Terry learns he has a malignant tumor. 4 months later, his right leg is amputated 6 inches above his knee. He then undergoes 16 months of chemotherapy. On February 10, 1979, Terry begins training for his Marathon of Hope. On April 12, 1980, Terry dips his artificial leg into the Atlantic Ocean and begins his odyssey west. On June 28, 1981, Terry Fox dies. Today, 2022, the Terry Fox Foundation has raised an amazing sum for cancer awareness and research. Let's consider first Anne, our budding writer, and why I'm so thankful for her example demonstrating what it is to live with patience. Following the 3-day train ride from Amsterdam to Auschwitz, 549 of the 1,019 passengers traveling with Anne were sent directly to the gas chambers. Having turned 15 barely 3 months prior, she was one of the youngest people spared. Upon arrival, she was stripped, disinfected, her head was shaved, and she was tattooed as prisoner number A-25063. Her occupation as slave laborer was to haul rocks and dig rolls of sod. She and her sister Margot became infected by scabies and were moved to an infirmary rampant with rats and mice. 7 weeks after arrival, Anne and Margot were transferred from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, along with 8,000 other women. Both girls died approximately 4 to 5 months later. Margot first, from a head injury after falling from her bunk due to weakness and delirium, and then Anne of typhus, along with 17,000 other prisoners in the winter of 1945. They were each buried in mass graves. Their mother, Edith, had been separated from her daughters prior to transport to Bergen-Belsen. Edith survived the winter, as they had, but died of weakness and disease on January 6, 1945, just 3 weeks before the camp's liberation and 10 days before her 45th birthday. Edith's daughters outlived her by 1 month, 2 at the most, their official dates of death having not been recorded in writing. It is believed that of the 107,000 Jews deported from the Netherlands between 1942 and 1944, 5,000 survived. Today, Anne is remembered as a celebrated diarist who described everyday life from her hiding place in an Amsterdam attic between the ages of 13 and 15. Her diary is one of the world's best-known books and has been recounted in film, literature, popular music, television, and other media. Anne's father, Otto, the only surviving member of the Frank family, returned to Amsterdam after the war and fulfilled his daughter's dream to become a writer by publishing her diary. Translated into 70 languages, 30 million copies of her diary have now been sold. Opened in the spring of 1960, the Anne Frank House remains one of Amsterdam's primary tourist attractions, welcoming around 1.2 million visitors each year. The Anne Frank Fonds, a charitable foundation established by Otto in Basel, Switzerland, to protect his daughter's legacy, is now the owner of the rights to all translations, editions, compilations, and authorized books about Anne Frank and her family. The Fonds educates young people against racism globally, including projects in Germany, Israel, India, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the United States. In 1997, the Anne Frank Educational Center was opened in Frankfurt, where Frank lived with her family until 1934. This center is a place where both young people and adults learn about the history of National Socialism and discuss its consequences today. In 1999, Time named Anne Frank among the heroes and icons of the 20th century, stating, "With a diary kept in a secret attic, she braved the Nazis and lent a searing voice to the fight for human dignity." After being blown down by gale force winds in 2010, 11 saplings from the tree outside Anne's window were distributed to museums, schools, parks, and Holocaust remembrance centers, including the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, a school in Little Rock, Arkansas that was the scene of a desegregation battle, Liberty Park in Manhattan, which honors victims of the September 11 attacks, Kelly Ingram Park in Birmingham, Alabama, and beyond. Today, Anne is included as one of the topics in the canon of the Netherlands, which is the Minister of Education, Culture, and Science established to provide a chronological summary of Dutch history taught in primary schools and the first 2 years of secondary schools. In 2012, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum unveiled a likeness of Anne. Asteroid 5535 Anne Frank was named in her honor in 1995, having been discovered in 1942. More than 270 schools worldwide are named after Anne. In 2020, the first in a series of Anne Frank Children's Human Rights Memorials was placed adjacent to a high school outside Jerusalem, followed by a second memorial in Antigua, Guatemala, and a third now in Ethiopia. 2022 marked the 75th anniversary of the publication of Anne's diary. Though it comes at the highest cost imaginable, I am thankful for Anne's perspective on patience. Remarkable for a teenager of 13, 14, barely 15 years old. Her language lives on. And, speaking only for myself, these are the 6 lines from her diary that haunt me the most. The first 2 are specifically about patience in what was the mother of all lockdowns, the sort of lockdown that more frequently terminated in death, not survival. And the final 4 lines stopped me in my tracks, partly because she had no way of knowing how limited her days were and how dark, but also because of her optimism, which we are told accompanied her until she could no longer stand. "Paper is more patient than man," she wrote. "If we wait patiently, quietly, I believe that help will come. As long as this exists, this sunshine and this cloudless sky, and as long as I can enjoy it, how can I be sad? What a wonderful thought it is that some of the best days of our lives haven't even happened yet. Our lives are fashioned by our choices. First, we make our choices. Then, our choices make us. And finally, I believe in the sun, even when it rains." Thank you for listening to Anne's story. Please join me again next time for episode 7, Perseverance, where we'll meet our bookworm, Viktor Frankl, whose transformation to lion is the real-life equivalent of Clark Kent becoming Superman.